You'll note that that time is not this time. It is 10 a.m. and we're going to be looking at .NET and GraphQL cross-platform UIs with .NET specifically, and a few of the libraries to make queries against GraphQL, etc. I'm Adrian, and welcome to today's Hasura GraphQL stream. Oh, where do we start? Where do we start? Where do we start? That is the big question. The first thing we're going to take a look at is two different projects that manage have built libraries to provide the ability to build cross-platform user interfaces to almost any platform. We'll talk more specifically about that for each, but we're going to look at two different platforms that have libraries and functionality and features to build cross-platform with .NET. The first one will be the Uno platform, which you can further check out here at platform.uno. And then the next one will be Avalonia UI.net. Both of these have pretty extensive differences, but all good capabilities and differences in the way you want to or maybe don't want to implement with these tools. So let's get into those and take a look at each. I'm just going to go to the websites real quick and show you those. Here we got Avalonia.net. Looks like that. Boom. There we go. So this one, the general idea with its technology is that you build a single project that then dynamically determines what operating system it runs on when you execute it. So you see this in the code, which again we'll look at in just a second. And in that sense, you kind of work to a very streamlined, focused, single project basis, and the XAML that's in that project. And then it determines how it's going to run. So kind of simplified in its focus. In some ways, it removes some of the options about how to make things specific for different operating systems like Mac OS versus Linux versus Windows. But we'll look a little bit more at that and talk about that. The next one is the Uno platform, which I did not type the name correctly, but the good old search engine found it for us. So here we go. This framework basically, or platform, I should say, this platform, what it provides us is a way to build the user interface across the different operating systems, and also it integrates with some Xamarin capabilities and things to give us the iOS or Android interfaces in addition to. So in both of these cases, the way to get started kind of varies depending on which IDE or CLI, if you're going to use a CLI, IDE or CLI approach you want to take. In Visual Studio, there's a way to add the template, go in and create a new project, go through the steps like this. There's also a way to do so with Writer, and it talks about that. Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio for Mac, each of those has a slightly different approach in getting the template. The one universal way to do this, though, is you just go out and you use the .NET CLI and get them using the standard CLI approach of new project template, create a new project that way, etc. Avalonia is basically the same approach with their get started. So you're creating a new Avalonia project. They talk about how to do so from within Visual Studio. Then in .NET Core, they talk about the specific .NET command right here. So nothing wild, nothing crazy, both pretty much the same general approach to getting started. So let's look at the projects that we get when we do that. So I'm going to launch PowerShell. Of course, you can do this from Bash. Like if you're on Mac or Linux, you can do this basically the same commands from Bash. You don't need to be using PowerShell. All you need is .NET installed. You can go out and get that from Microsoft. Let's see, as a matter of fact, I'll pull up the page real quick. Just do a search so you have that as reference in video here. .NET install. There we go. So there you go, the different options to get started. And this is the core thing that you'll need, regardless of what option you run with. Right now, and you'll notice just from this screen, there is the LTS option, which is .NET Core 3.1, the .NET 5.0, which is the current, but it's not LTS supported, from my understanding. It gets a little confusing with all these sometimes. As far as the .NET Framework 4.8, just put that out of your mind. That's the Windows-only version of .NET and won't really do us much good. Like I could run it since I'm running Windows here, but it has a lot of hooks in it, etc., that won't let us build on Mac or Linux or the other respective platforms. So we're using .NET Core, which is the latest, greatest, and the path moving forward is .NET 5.0. So if you build anything to Core 3.1, you're going to have a pretty good path and pipeline to move to .NET 5.0 and the next versions as they come down the pipe. So in this case, what you'd want to do is you'd want to grab the SDK, whether you go 5.0 or 3.1, and that's going to be the core base that we start with, right? So just download it, and like on Windows, it'll be an executable. It'll detect your operating system when you go to this page and should give you the appropriate options. But you can go in and check the different versions here. And I know somewhere, oh yeah, you can just click, get the Linux. And in here, I think what it does is it just gives you like it gives you the instructions. And then in some cases, it's like using the standard apt-get to get it, or you can use different tools, like here's the Debian information about it and support, etc. So I'm not going to dig into each of the installation versions. I have some more information about that on my blog and some things like that, but pretty much everything you need is right here on .net.microsoft.com/download to get .NET. So, okay, that's enough about getting started with .NET. All right, let's get into my codes folder here. I'm going to make a directory, and we're going to call this one looking at platforms. I'm going to move into that. Okay. And then in here, I'm just going to create a new project, a new Uno project, so we can take a look at what we get whenever we install or whenever we create a new Uno project by default. I'm just going to use the standard .NET CLI tool option that I was showing you earlier. That's in the doc. So nothing weird or special about it. It's just the standard way to get started. So let's clear that. And then let's see, we'll do .NET new Uno app. And then we'll name it. We'll call it Uno experimentation. Did I spell it wrong? I might have. Let's try this. Let's follow the instructions here, and we'll install a new project template because maybe something updated on me. Templates.net. All right, looks like it installed. What this did just now is it installed a template, or will attempt to install a template, and then it pulls up a list of the available templates that are already on the machine, etc. Here's a little better view of that list. Let's see if I can get this text bigger. Whoops, I just opened voice command on another screen. That's crazy. Anyway, so this is no magnifier. These are the list of the templates I already have on this machine, and it should have installed that one. It's your .NET ignore file. Somewhere there ought to be Uno now. Oh, there it is. Uno platform WebAssembly head for Xamarin Forms. That's one of them. There's another Uno platform project. It looks like there's a couple. So I'm going to try that same getting started command again. Just do new Uno app, Uno experimentation. There we go. That's what I expected. So now we have Uno experimentation here. Let's go into here, and then let's open up the directory. Just take a look at it. There we go. So we have a solution file, global JSON file, vsconfig, and then all of the projects. So let's open this up in Visual Studio 2019. So this is the standard edition. I'm not using any fancy extended edition or nothing like that. This is just your standard Visual Studio 2019 that Microsoft offers pretty much for free. I'm gonna let that load up. While that happens, I'm actually going to open up Writer in the background here, just so it's open, because these .NET IDEs tend to be a little heavy-handed. All right, again, we are looking at the Uno platform. All right, where's my minimize all projects option? Oh, I don't. Okay, I guess that doesn't exist in this version. I don't have all the fancy bits attached, or fancy plugins. Might need to install extra components. I'm not going to worry about extra components at the moment. I know a few things have been installed, but let's just talk about what we do have here, and basically like what we can do with just what we have so far. Some of these things will run as is from the IDE, and we'll run those right now. Some of them may not, and depending on your operating system, as you load up these projects, like if you're doing development on Mac OS and Linux, some of these projects will load, some of them won't, depending on the proprietary nature of the specific project. So the first one I want to look at, we have Droid and iOS. So if you have the plugins to do Droid and iOS development on your machine, like I can click here, right click, set a startup project, and then I'm going to actually run. Let's see, I have the Pixel 2 Pi 9.0 API emulator on this machine. So I'm going to run that, and we're going to launch and see if we get a good clean launch out of Android. So that should take a minute. It is Android, and if you are familiar with Android development, sometimes the emulator takes a minute or two to launch. So it looks like we got the emulator launched. The application itself, however, is not launched yet. I'm going to give it about 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8. Oh, there, phone's starting. So we're making some progress. I've had experiences where sometimes the Android OS in the emulator doesn't actually start. So I have to like close it and then restart it. But once it does, it's usually great. It's just like using, you know, an Android phone of that particular type. In this case, again, Pixel 2. So there we go. We got our phone. You can go in here and do various things. Oh, there we go. I opened up search. So, you know, you can use the apps just like any phone, right? So testing UI apps. Oh yeah, and all the default stuff. Oh, and I don't know if you heard the sounds, but it even triggered the sounds for me. So a lot of good stuff. So that gave us that. Let's go in here. Waiting for it to stop. As you can see, though, it's definitely resource intensive. It is not a small feat to have launched the Android. So with that one done, like to try out the other projects within the Uno project that's created, like you can right click on the iOS one. As soon as that stops running, looks like it's still processing something. You verify that it's shutting this stuff down or not. I don't need all that up right now. Maybe the IDE is stuck. Oh, fun. Either way, let's take a look just to use a different one just so you can see a familiar interface. And I also want to bring up the point. Oh, there's the Android bit back. So I'm gonna leave it running. And I'm gonna open up JetBrains Writer again. Now the writer that I'm opening, see if I can get this to, it keeps showing up on the wrong screen, and I want to show you the toolbox. It is not cooperating. Bear with me just a minute here. There were deployment issues. No, do not continue, stop, and we should be good. Okay, I'm going to quit this toolbox. I do promise this is an interesting little tidbit. Let's relaunch that tool. JetBrains toolbox. That is what I want to run. It seems to have sort of started correctly. As you can see, it's flashing there. All right, I'm gonna give it just a second to start up. Okay, there we go. This is what I was trying to show you. So I have all my other IDEs, and of course, JetBrains Writer. I'm using the EAP, or I'm going to use the EAP right now, and we're going to take a look at this Uno project. And then we're also going to use the EAP to look at the Avalonia project. The EAP has a few more features around the cross-platform development capabilities, especially with Avalonia. And those features will be coming down the pipe to a full version very soon. But it's perfectly reliable to use the EAP at this point. I've been using it for several days doing development on this particular project. And the new UI is looking pretty good. So let's see here. We just created what was it? The looking at platforms, experimentation. There we go. Got Nyan Cat loading up my software. There we go. So just like Visual Studio, this will load up everything. And then we can work with it just like we do in Visual Studio. It just has the JetBrains Writers features. So a lot of refactoring, autocomplete, all those capabilities are all here. You can, of course, use Visual Studio Code if you want to try that. There's a lot of different options around that. Hey, MTX Shift, how are you? I got a hey from MTX Shift. So anybody else is out there? Good day, good morning, good evening, good night to you. Welcome to the stream. All right, this will load in a minute here. We're going to talk about this loading in just another minute past that. But okay, we got things. Looks like they're mostly loaded. You'll notice we looked at the Droid just a minute ago from the Visual Studio interface. Now we're in the Writer interface. Of course, iOS, etc. There's Mac OS. We could launch that if we had certain plugins, probably, but I'm not even going to try to launch it. The key here, though, is this project. This is the singular place where the user interface is located at, and all of the user interface pieces, right? So you go in here, and you see we have our hello world message. So hello to this new cross-platform world. Hello, and welcome to this new cross-platform world. And this is your standard XAML interface. We can go in here and put something like, let's put I think it's, like I have autocomplete right now. Oh, it's processing assembly, so it'll take just a second for some of this. In the meantime, with that text block, if I run this, depending on what I have selected here, right now I have GTK selected, so that's kind of like the Linux interface. Let's say I wanted to check out the Universal Windows one, though. So I picked UWP, and I'm going to run that. I guess it's going to process assemblies for another minute or two. You'll notice also there is a, where is it, WASM. So WASM is WebAssembly. And we're going to take a look at that in just a quick second, too. So it shouldn't be too much longer here. Run, run, run. Nyan Cat is working diligently. All right, so I want to run the UWP. Oh, whoops, I didn't mean to bring focus to the Nyan Cat like that. If you're wondering, that Nyan Cat is a plugin for JetBrains Writer. It's available in all of the JetBrains IDEs, and I highly suggest installing the Nyan Cat, just because. All right, there's our build started finally. How is it going? Put, 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 put. Come on, it's getting there. Failed to save. Okay, not worried about that right now. There we go. Registering the UWP app with Manifest. Some progress is being had. We should see a Hello World Windows application in just a moment here. This is taking a strangely excessive amount of time. It usually does not take this long to do a build. Here we go. Whew. So there's the app. There we go. It loaded up the UI. So that UI is located in the single project called Uno Experimentation Shared, as you can see right back here. And what I build in it is what's displayed whenever I launch an application. So for example, this is the Universal Windows app. So that's launched. If I scroll down to something else that launches here, like I could launch the WPF one, but let's look at the WASM, which will give us an actual web page, right? So I'm going to pick WASM and then do a build on that. The build will start and should just take a few seconds. It's quite weird that it's taking this long to do builds today. I feel like I have a background process thrashing or something. Windows long path support is not enabled. You may experience errors. I haven't named anything long, so it should be okay. So one of the things about this project, the Uno projects, is it gives you projects, as you can see, that are specific to the device or specific to the operating system, which gives you a lot of control about how you have your application built and set up to be distributed and thus deployed to a particular operating system or a particular device. That's pretty awesome. That gives you a lot of control and a lot of power, which oftentimes you want. By the way, hello, Matt Medic. Good to see you. Or see your messages, I guess is what I should say. I don't actually see you. I do see your avatar, though. So yeah, we have those different projects in there with the overall solution. So it gives us that power to really determine how we want each of these things to run. We have that singular interface application project. So that one, it gives us that single space to build an interface, right? However, I will also point out, and we did get successful deployment and execution. Let me pull that window over and open on the wrong one. There we go. So now we have a web page that's using WebAssembly. So WASM is basically in .NET world Blazor elements, from my understanding. It's using WebAssembly, so you can write C# and have it basically execute as a web page, as you see right here, which is pretty awesome. So now, Uno gives you all that control, but as you can see, the builds are a little bit rougher. There's a lot more to keep up with and a lot more to be familiar with. However, the next one we're going to look at, the Avalonia, basically scales that down to operating specific applications, and those and it's all wrapped into a single project. So let's take a look at that now. So I'm going to actually stop running this. Whoops, didn't mean to close it. And I'm going to close Visual Studio just for a moment. And let's open up PowerShell again. And in PowerShell, I'm going to go back into my code directory. What's it again? Oh yeah, looking at platforms. So there's the Uno experimentation. Now let's create an Avalonia project. And basically I'm going to do the same thing. We're just going to use the, excuse me, the .NET CLI, and we're going to create a new app. Okay, so let's do .NET new Avalonia. I have to say it that way to make sure I spell it right. And we'll name it, let's see here, Avalonia Explorations. Spell it right? I think I spelled it right. Oh, I think it's Avalonia app. No. So maybe, does this need updated too? Well, let's use this one. We'll add the template, which if you're just getting started with this, you're going to have to add the template anyway. So it's kind of fitting that I'm basically being forced to go through the steps again. All right, so we got that added. Let me stretch that out so we can see a little better. And now, let's get this thing started. All right, there we go. Avalonia Explorations, right there. Open up the Explorer again, just so we can look at it in the folder directory Explorer to see all the what we get, basically. Oh, interesting. So it didn't give me. That's weird. So doing it this way this time, this particular template just gave me the singular project with all of these elements. Okay. I don't have a project file and I don't have a solution file. It seems a little funny to me. But we're going to go in and let's go to open up Visual Studio. We're going to get a Visual Studio or take a look at how you would do this in Visual Studio real quick. So I'm going to create a new project. Do a search for Avalonia. There we go. And I'm going to actually just use the standard application. I'm not going to do the MVVM one right now. Go next. We'll do Avalonia from Visual Studio experimentation. Oh wait, I don't have long file names set up, so let's just do Avalonia experimentation VS. Then I'm going to put this in my directory here. It's going to make me do the search. Looking at platforms. There we go. Select folder. Place solution and project in the same directory. So let's do that just for something different. Usually it puts the solution at the root, then makes a directory and puts the project in that directory. Actually, we will do it that way because it's kind of a better way to organize .NET projects, especially if you go past a single project. All right, there we go. All right, now we've got a good view of what the Avalonia projects look like. And if we go in and we look at the folder, so that one that we just created, which was a little weird, the template wasn't doing that for me recently, but it just stuck all the project files in one directory without a project file itself or a solution file. What we just created in this folder, we now have a solution file. So Visual Studio knows how to open it, and other project IDEs like JetBrains Writer will know how to open it. And then in here, you see that basically the same files, but we have the other pertinent things, and the solution file knows where all those things are. So with that, let's take a look at two specific things real quick. First, take a look at the program. And I just want to show you, this is where the magic happens for Avalonia, right here. When the app builder begins to build the app for whatever the operating system is, it says use platform detect. So it detects which platform it's running on and then launches the app with those pertinent capabilities for that operating system. So that's in program. We don't need to add any code there or anything, but I do want to go look at and edit the main window. We haven't done a build yet, so I'm going to click on this, right click, and then say build solution. And then build succeeded. Okay, that was nice and quick. Here we go. Welcome to Avalonia. Cool. So then let's try to add something. Let's add what's a clock look like? And then let's add a text block. And we're going to take our welcome to Avalonia message. We're going to put that in there. And then let's add a calendar. Just do that. And then drop down item, singular item. Down item 2, singular item 2. All right, and now I'm going to do a build again. So right click on the solution, click build. I have an error of some type, and I have broken something. Let's take out the drop down. Maybe that's what it was. You can also click on the project and build a single project. And since I only have a single project, I just right clicked on that and clicked to build that project. All right. So unable to find a setter that does multiple assignments. Okay, let's make it as simple as possible. Build that. I think that'll work. Let's change this to Avalonia experimentation. Okay, that looks good. Yeah. Let's try to add a button. We definitely want a button. Add a name to it. Our powerful button. And do a command. The command to fire an event. This is not the appropriate syntax naming convention for .NET, but we're just having fun and seeing what this will do right now. Let's see, it's default. I will set it as default. Basically, that means if there's two buttons, like this, and let's say this one is okay, this one is cancel, as you might have experienced in other applications. Our cancel button. Cancel event. There we go. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, you know what? I think we need stack panel. We need to put that stuff in here, maybe. You need a enclosing container. No. Silly thing. Okay. We're doing this off the top of my head here and actually just follow directions. Anyway, that stuff should work. And if we run, we should get the application. And again, in the Avalonia, it builds and then it'll run and it'll launch depending on your OS. There we go. Welcome to the Avalonia experimentation. Cool. All right, now we need something to execute, because I'm going to actually use this to move further to our next phase of this session where we start to get into some GraphQL. And if we hit up against the time, we'll continue this one into the next session and extend and elaborate on what we're doing with the GraphQL and talk about how to bind data and do a lot of other things within a .NET UI that's pertinent to using GraphQL as our source API and for interactions and all of that. So let's see here. Next step though, we basically want to get a button in here so that we can fire an event. Right? That's our key thing here. So let's try this again. Back panel, I have that in there. Maybe background. Make it an azure color, and we'll call it our task runner. We call it that. Hey, look there. So it shows up in the UI here. So I must have typed it right this time. I must have typed something wrong last time. So making progress. All right, next thing's next. Let's see here. We want to now get the code behind going. So this is the XAML. It controls the interface, or what representation of the interface, and this is the backend. So let's see. What do we want to do? We want to attach that button's event basically, and make a call. Make it be able to execute something based on an event being triggered when you press the button. So in here, what we want to do is get the button object. So we'll say my button with this dot find control, and it's going to be a button. Button. Who's got a button? And I forget what I've named it. So let's go back and find out. Oh, I have not named it. So let's name it. Name button task runner. Now, a lot of the time in the .NET world, they like to name things like this: button task runner. I don't particularly go that route. I like to either follow the button task runner so that you don't run into the three-letter acronym getting confusing or anything like that, or I just go full uppercase everywhere, button task runner, and I like to put the control element name at the first part, so whenever you see it in list or whatever, you see the buttons grouped together, etc. You can do this by domain or however you want to do it. It's your choice how you want to name stuff. But just for this example, I'm going to name it this way and keep rolling with it. So we got button task runner. Go back in our code behind. We're going to find, hit that, and make that button my button object. So now, we need to say that this is going to be variable object being declared. So then if I type my button, should get, yeah, there we go, all the things related to that button. So there's different events like double tapped, tapped, etc. You could probably even text input, or maybe it's content, I think. Content, let's see if this is what I think it is. New button name. So now when we run it, that should be the name, I think, instead of, yeah, new button name. So it's called new button name now instead of what we had put in the XAML itself. So that's basically overriding what this is. It's setting it after it's launched. So the XAML is read in, and then the code behind has the loader execute here. This is where the XAML and the app is loaded itself, and then it gets the button, makes the object. It says, okay, I found the button within the XAML. What do I do to it? And it's changing the content, i.e. the name of the button, to this. So that's all fine and dandy, but let's see here. What we want to do now, really, let's do a public void method, and then we're going to say we're going to have it be, let's see, I think it's my button click is what you name it, and then we want to take the object, and then the routed event args e. This is pretty much the default signature for any action event coming off of a control. So then it's not. Did we name it my button? No, we named it button task runner. So it needs to be, or I should say it ought to be, this. And over here, to attach this, we need to add a click mode. No, what is it? It's maybe just command and this, like so. And that should give us the ability to. So what is our other option here? We have a text block. Let's name it. Let's call it messages. Welcome messages. Right? There we go. And we're going to, again, this find control. This would be a text block, correct? And then the name of it is welcome messages. That should give us the text block. And then we can write in messages dot, is it just text, I think? Yep. Let's do this. Let's do messages dot text alignment. Okay, text alignment left. Let's do it left so we notice the difference very clearly. Text is going to read button has been pressed. The setter I command line. Maybe I do need to just type click if the IntelliSense isn't working correctly. Button has been pressed, so it worked. That worked. Sometimes, and this is tricky and unfortunate, the IntelliSense in Visual Studio is not always on par. Like here it says, what is the underlined message? See if I can get it to show. And needless to say, it's showing a scrolly string or line underneath click, which is usually some type of warning or something like that. Maybe it's a deprecated feature. I can't see the message here. But either way, sometimes you just have to know which command it is or look it up in the docs because the IntelliSense isn't always 100%. It's like 99%, not 100%. All right, a few other things to note before we move on to the next bit here. Oops. View designer. As you can see in Visual Studio, there is the designer. So this part shows you a UI representation or UI representation that it thinks the application is going to look like. So if we set the min, max, width, and height, we get a little bit more control about what this is going to look like. So like we can go up in here and say, let's say this is width is going to be 640. Going old school here, we'll use the little bitty size from a billion years ago, 640 by 480. And then let's set the min width to 640 and then min height to 480. Save that. There we go. And then let's do a build. See if this screen updates real quick. No, it did not. But also you can go in here and set this to min width 640. And oh, there it is. Finally, it did update. So 480. And then let's actually get the button and make it a pertinent size. So we'll do width the 100, 8, go with 30. Then we'll go horizontal alignment. Let's put that left. And since I have to build it every time, this screen is only but so helpful in that regard. You can see that it has new button name set. So let's actually take that out of the loader. My CS, there's my CS. Take that out. I actually need to do that. Have it load normally. There we go. Yeah, okay, cool. Well, I think what I need to do here is horizontal alignment left. Is that it? Yeah, okay, there we go. Now we got it in there. And then this is going to be, I'm not going to set this because I don't know what that really needs to be. Text block is in there. Set a margin. We're going to set a margin of 5. There we go. So that gives us a little space. That gives us something to work with. Okay. Don't tell me the button's pressed. I know the button's pressed. I'm trying to get a right click here. Not working. So anyway, all right, we have a UI and we have a basic button. So we'll work on getting the next pieces. Let's have a, we'll put grid in here at some point. I think it's data grid, something like that, grid. There we go. I wonder if it'll even show a basic grid. Probably won't show it right now, but yeah, I'll add that when I have more to actually put in it because it requires more default settings and everything. The button, actually, let's make this right. There we go. Whoa, went off the page. And let's change the width so we can actually see our whole runner message. Here we go. Okay, new button name. It hasn't changed back, even though I took that out of the C#. Yeah, it's all gone. That's weird. Button's been pressed. We'll actually change this to executing GraphQL query. All right, so we have the user interface. Next thing we want to do is get some GraphQL libraries to be able to work with. The immediate GraphQL library that I'm going to get is the GraphQL .NET library, which is out here, this path. Let's see here. Here's the important bits. So one thing to note, and this is something that caught me by surprise a little bit, is a little weird. So there's this library, and this includes server-side and client-side elements. And what we're going to be working with is purely the client side. So this is the root of everything. But then at this location, there's actually a client. So if we go to the GitHub, then we change this from .NET to client. Here's the client library. It has a good little example in here that shows a pretty basic GraphQL query executing. Basic object declaration here. Then in the program, this simple call right there. So you can fit it on one screen, which is great. So this is basically what we're going to be working with is the GraphQL client. and the respective pieces. So let me pop that off of here, and we will start getting a look at that. And again, here is the URL. That's to that main docs page and everything. And then there's the client specifically, and then the GraphQL.net library itself. So here, I'll post these in chat real quick. Here is the client. And then here is the .NET server, which we won't be using the server. We'll be using the server, which, you know, gives us all these, the server capabilities already out of the box, ready to go. And then let's see, there's one other link I wanted to make sure you had. Oh, I think that was it. Yep, that was all of them. So that is what we're going to start looking at this point. We're going to make a little bit of headway in the next 2 minutes, but the main focus will be on the next stream. We're going to get directly into the GraphQL because it took a little while longer than expected to actually get all of the user interfaces looked at and to experiment with them, check them out, see kind of how the controls fit together and everything. And in the next stream, what we will do, what I will take you a tour on, is executing some GraphQL queries, some mutations, setting up a subscription to look at and be able to monitor in real time as data is changed in the database via your user interface. So really cool feature there, really cool capability of GraphQL. And we'll take a look further at more of the additional controls that we'll want to look at, like data grids, some just binding to general controls like text boxes and drop downs. So you'll be able to see how the .NET controls in a cross-platform application that runs natively on the specific operating systems. So it's not like an Electron app or a web app. It's running natively to the specific operating system, to the specific device. And it gives you the ability to write everything in a singular language, C# or F# or VB.NET or COBOL.NET, whichever .NET language you want to use. And then, so we'll take a look at all that and basically get GraphQL executions working, mutations, subscriptions, and we'll look at binding to some of the controls, and as with mutations, like you would, we'll look at actually executing those mutations and getting changes from our form, from our user interface form, back to the database via GraphQL. So hope that was entertaining, this exploration into cross-platform development with .NET. Look forward to talking to everybody next time. Have a good one. Cheers.